Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Sagittarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for Aries season. I hope you are well. I'm using the 777 deck for you today. Things to tell you. Right, before we begin, there will be an extended that will be available at the end. If you would like to see that, you can follow the links in the description box below. One will take you to Selfie, where you can purchase the individual video, or you could come join my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on the Circle platform. There are classes running. We're involved in a year-long Deccan walk, which is really good for leaning into the meanings of the minor arcana cards. If you're interested in that, follow that link and come join in, because there's all sorts of things over there, and there's a week's free trial as well, so you know, all good. Anyway, let's flip this around and discuss what we are going to look at today, following the structure that I think is most useful at this time. We're going to start off with looking at where you are right now. Of all the questions that we could ask, I think that one is the most valuable. And then moving on from there, actually somewhat in alignment with the Aries 1 and 2 Deccan that we're in, we have been in and we are in now. With the second set of cards, I would like to concentrate on where we put our energy and focus into what we need to be embodying right now, particularly as it pertains to personal responsibility, sovereignty, all those sorts of things. And then finally, we're just going to have a look at what the next step is. I mean, I've called these readings Crossing the Rubicon for a reason. The world is changing, and it's going to change really, really rapidly. And however mental everything feels like right now, by the time we get into Taurus season, I do think we're going to be in a different world. So with all of that in mind, just simply the next step. And then when we move to the extended, we'll be digging into whatever may come up here and what else you need to know. So I hope that works for you. Let's have a little look and see where you are. Can I have 3 cards for Sag, please? First card out, the Star. That's a rather lovely one, a star. I like that very much. We have 10 of Pentacles reversed. Lovely. And the Page of Wands. Are we getting ready for something, Sag? That's pretty bob on, actually, I would say, from the Sagittarians that I know in my life. I think that's a pretty good assessment. We'll get into what it means in a second. So let's have a little look at this embodiment sovereignty question. We have the Knight of Cups, Pisces energy. We have the Queen of Cups, Cancer energy. And we have the 6 of Wands. That's interesting. That's very interesting indeed, not least because Jupiter, who is the ruling planet of this card here, is currently in Cancer, and Jupiter is your ruling planet. So, okay, what about the next step for Sagittarius, please? We have Wir haben the Page of Swords. We have the World. And we have, to finish, the Queen of Pentacles, Capricorn energy, with a Virgo card, 9 of Pentacles, at the bottom of the deck. Right, let me straighten these up a little bit so we can see what we're looking at. I've got the Waitsmith to hand, just in case we need to clarify anything. But this, I'll be honest, this looks quite straightforward to me, Sag, and it's not necessarily what I thought it would be. Given that we are in times of great volatility and times of great movement, one might expect the centaur to be galloping around. And actually, that's not what I'm seeing here at all. There's something a little bit more still showing up here in these cards. That's not to say that movement isn't happening, but it's not quite of the sort that you would expect, right? So let's start off with these top cards up here. Where are you right now? We have the Star, we have the 10 of Pentacles, and we have the Page of Wands. And there is a preparatory aspect to this. Remember that within the minor arcana, the card that represents Sagittarius is the Knight of Wands, right? Moving around, galloping about, gallivanting, pivoting pivoting very hard. So the presence of the Page of Wands is actually the step before. This is not the point where movement happens. It's not the point where... I've used this example sometimes. I think it illustrates it rather well. You can see the difference between the Page and the Knight of Wands as booking yourself a holiday. As as strange even as that concept seems, you know, the idea of being able to go on holiday at the moment. The point of, you know, the envisaging the journey, getting out there, like booking your flights, booking your hotel, booking all that kind of thing, right? This is all the preserve of the Page of Wands. Whatever we are actioning isn't actually happening yet, but we're in the preparatory stage of it. And maybe, you know, we might consider you buying yourself a new wardrobe, for example, to go on holiday, or your sun cream, or, you know, whatever it is that you would need to take with you. These are all properties of the Page of Wands. Everything, I would say, right up until the point where you leave your house to get into your car, to go to the airport, or into the taxi, or onto the bus, or onto the train, whatever it is, to go to the airport to actually take off. That's where the Knight of Wands would begin to take over, because there is the movement. Everything else has led up to this point. So if the Page of Wands is in the present energy, then we don't have you firing off in 50 different directions. We've got something a little bit more internal going on, interestingly enough. Knowing that there will come a point in the not too distant future where perhaps you may have to canter quite fast, perhaps you might have to move, you know, from one place to another. The action aspect of this has not taken a hold yet. We're still very much in the planning phase. Whether you are actively planning something, or whether you can just feel that there will come a point fairly soon where you're going to have to change direction pretty fast, or start moving in a direction pretty fast. We're not there yet. There's a peaceful energy, Sagittarius, around you at the moment, which is insane. It's not insane. I think it's brilliant, actually. But it is notable given the amount of chaos that is outside at the moment. So the Star and the Ten of Pentacles, I think, is probably the explanation as to why the peace is here. And to some extent, it has something in common with Capricorn, the Capricorn reading that I did. And in the case of Capricorn, I was talking about the fact that it's unusual to need to remind Capricorn of the idea of consequence, right? That's something that naturally factors into a Capricorn's thinking. We can't say necessarily the same about Sagittarius. I have parented Sagittarian children. The idea of consequence is something entirely absent usually from the discourse, right? But here we've got something that seems to be arcing over what is happening in the moment. Because what is happening in the moment is the Ten of Pentacles reversed. What we have is a breakdown, a collapse of everything that has been structured and solid and secure up until this point, right? Such that you would be able to make plans off the back of it. So, for example, you know, getting on the internet, booking a flight and going, well, I'm going over here. I'm going to do that thing, right? There's a certain linearity and a certain predictability about structure and stability, predictability, all that sort of stuff, that allows us to plan forwards. And that isn't here at the moment, which is why this Page of Wands feels more internal to me than just simply plans that you might be making at the moment, right? It feels more like an awareness. That's probably the best way to put it, an awareness that soon the things will come. Soon it will be required for us to change direction or start moving in a direction quite rapidly. You know? But it's not here yet. I mean, maybe this is of the nature of... what's even the word that I'm looking for? I've been really struggling with my words today. It's gone clean out of my head. Come back. Of the nature of fire, at least, anyway. Intuition. I think that's the word I was looking for. Intuition. the intuition's kind of shimmering and saying soon, 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 not quite yet, soon. Because whatever this is, the woman in the star is looking up, and she's looking over the top of what is falling down. I do wonder if you are choosing not to participate by way of attention to what is falling down at the moment. It's almost like, because you're a Sag and because you have vision, and because there is always this upward kind of viewpoint that you take. What's going on down here is fairly irrelevant. You're like, can I get to the bit where I start to create something amazing? The idea of creation and destruction is somewhat built into the Sagittarian archetype, right? And you yourselves occasionally have been agents of destructive behaviour, whether it's been self-applied or to a situation outside of you. It's like this couldn't be less relevant to you at the moment. You don't. It's not that you don't care, but you don't care, you know, because something better is on its way in. Now, one of the things that I've observed from the personal readings that I've been doing over the course of the last few months, actually, is that for most people, they're kind of chasing the tails a little bit, going, I don't know what to do next. I don't have the roadmap. I don't have the plan. I don't have the rules of the game that tell me I need to go from here to here to here to here to here, and then I'll be all right, right? Where there are no certainties, there are no guarantees. There is just an absence of anything. And that is quite understandably terrifying for some people. But I think for someone who is born in the dark half of the year, someone who, such as yourself, Sagittarius, right? It's someone who is aware of the breakdown and decay of things. You can't help but be aware of that because of Scorpio sitting next to you. But also Capricorn sitting ahead of you. You know, okay, and we'll build the thing that Sagittarian has the vision for. There's something visionary happening in terms of the way that you are processing reality at the moment. And you don't need to pay attention to what is falling down because you're already thinking ahead, as Sagittarians generally tend to do. You skipped ahead to the next bit. Like, there's something kind of boring and predictable about all of this, but what could be suddenly starts to be a lot more interesting. And we're back to the idea of Sagittarius being a visionary. Now, I think where Sagittarius has less fear than other people is because of this awareness of the cyclical nature of things, creation and destruction, one follows the other like night follows day. You're already dreaming. Now, maybe for some of you that is actually quite literal. You're already dreaming of the new. For some of you, it feels like more of an energetic orientation toward the new. We're not quite at the point to start creating it yet, but we are very, very close. Let's have a little look and see what else this star is giving us. It's such a beautiful card. Well done, star. Whoa. We've got the Nine of Pentacles, the Two of Wands, and the Five of Cups. But what's quite interesting is that these all showed up in reverse. Now we've got the Nine of Pentacles in the upright over here, but we've got it in the reverse down there. Two of Wands, Five of Cups in reverse. The Five of Cups in reverse seems like a stabilization of the emotional responses of the moment, right? There is a chaos within all of the cards that are numbered 5, and in the case of the Five of Cups, rather interestingly, the chaos is caused by the damming up of things, right? The repression of something that by definition should be moving. Grief being one of those things that is not a static state but a process that we move through, right? And a lot of people lose that as a concept when they're in the middle of it. So we stabilize that energy and we create order in that energy by recognizing that whatever we're experiencing in the moment, it too shall pass. Always, this too shall pass, right? And without wanting to put too grander words on it, but maybe this is entirely accurate, so I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to come out and say it. This feels like obedience to a higher law than currently what you see playing out in front of you. That's why you have no interest in it. And what do I mean by that? Well, what is going to happen is going to happen. There's no energy that is being wasted on or lost on the idea that everything must be kept upright all the time. Otherwise, everything's going to go wrong. Which is possibly what we might see if this Ten of Pentacles was in the upright right here. But you're like, no, I understand what's going on there. That's absolutely fine. And we always do say that Sagittarius moves a little... It moves in harmony with the flow of the universe. It doesn't really obey the laws of men. And part of this is where Sagittarius gets the, people get the idea that Sagittarius is deeply rebellious or, won't do as they're told. It's not that. It's that they obey a higher power. Now, it's interesting to see how that plays out in people who aren't even necessarily spiritually informed, right? They just do it. And they would probably struggle to put words to it. But the combination of the vision and the really rather beautiful obedience to higher principles means that you're not in a state of resistance at all to what's coming on. You can't change anything. The only thing that you can change is the way that you respond to it. So you're not in a state of resistance. You're not trying to assert yourself over the universe. You're not trying to assert your will or what you think will happen over anything. You're just flowing, Sag. Which is beautiful. Like, quite honestly, it is beautiful. And in that space that you find yourself, where you are, floating and flowing or whatever it is, knowing that you are being a good agent of the universe, no matter what other people may perceive about the way that you are conducting yourself at the moment, whatever that may be, there's a feeling of real abundance here. It's extraordinary. Well, I think that's a really rather lovely place to be, personally. Now, one thing that you must understand, and we'll certainly talk about this in a moment, is that not everybody else has the luck, the blessing, or any of the other things that might be required to be where you are and to see the world in the way that you do. And I think that if there is any potential, and it really is only potential, I'm not necessarily seeing this actualized anywhere, if there is any potential for a little bit of emotional or spiritual pain, it's in people not really getting where you are coming from. See, the Knight of Cups is that energy of extending your cup, your assistance, your love to somebody else, right? We do these things from this place of love, maybe a place of agape, right, where it's the love for humanity as a whole. You want to help. But the Queen of Cups and the Six of Wands on its side, it doesn't feel like it will be received in the way that you expect. Why? Because there's an upgrading of consciousness going on. I don't like the word upgrade exactly, but I'm struggling to find anything better in the moment for that. And there's a question of what people can perceive and what people can actually emotionally process at this point. Now, this is not to shit on people around you. It's very much a consequence of humans under load, right? I spoke about this in the How to Thrive in 2026 video. Like, everybody is under load, under pressure, apparently. Unless you're a Sag. No, that's not quite true, right? Because obedience to a higher power, right, following the rules and the guidelines of a higher power, if it's not perceived by other people, then it can feel a little bit isolating. And I think that's the thing that hurts a little bit here. You know, Jupiter being in Cancer is it's the place of exaltation for Jupiter, right? He loves to be in Cancer because he likes to expand, and Cancer has the capacity for expansion. But that's in normal times, and we're not in normal times. So here we've got this energy of wanting to give, wanting to be of service, but this water falling on concrete, I think that's the best way to describe it, right? There's nothing about the concrete that is in a position to be able to absorb this at this time. And so it doesn't matter how much you give, it doesn't matter how much water you turn out onto the situation, it's just going to sit there. It's not going to be absorbed because this process is an individual one, and I'm afraid to say it needs to be individually initiated. We can't do the work for other people, which means to some extent not only is it kind of isolating because nobody can quite join you where you are, but you also are running the risk of exposing yourself to rejection as people look at you as a blank piece of concrete and just go, "Why are you pouring water on me for? Stop it." You know, which means any kind of success that you might be looking for actually is probably very, very slim. Look at all these cards here in the reverse, right? Two of Cups in the reverse is actually a breakdown of relationships, generally speaking. Page of Swords in reverse is a refusal to take in new information. The Chariot in reverse is an upset sense of self that is possibly battling with ego and shadow and all sorts of internal drama, right? Based on what people don't want to accept about themselves or accept about reality as it stands at the moment. The Judgment card in reverse feels like an absolute refusal to go through the rebirth process, and the King of Pentacles in reverse is actually quite it feels doggedly material, and I think that's painful for you, Sag. You know, as someone who innately understands always that there's something beyond the basic mechanics of the universe, such as we have tried to understand them for the last few hundred years, thanks to the Royal Society, right? The Royal Society removed God from the process of science, tried to understand everything from a purely mechanistic point of view. How do these two things interact with each other? And as one of the signs, along with Pisces, actually, that not only feels constantly the presence of that higher power, but moves in rhythm with it. This feels maybe quite isolating. I'm going to have to leave it here just for a second, Sagittarius, because my doggy doorbell is ringing really loudly right now and I need to go see what they're about. I'll be right back. Interestingly, nothing at all. So, in terms of what you yourself are looking to embody, it is actually feeling to me like a slightly detached place. Maybe we might see the same energy coming up for Pisces, I don't know. Which would be well demonstrated by the energy of the star. It's kind of like we've got to look over the top of everything else and really lean into the connection of what we have that is higher. The star card always represents some kind of higher connection to me. I've spoken about this at length in the past, right? You can't, at this point, I think, have people understand what you're talking about. They won't get it, they don't feel it, and they certainly have no sense of what could come next, right? The only thing that you can really do is just to continue to be in this space, right? Continue to vibe. When we're talking about embodiment, the sun is quite a strong one, because it's asking you to consciously embody the awareness that everybody can't understand how you see everything that is happening right now, how you move within that space. You know, I think humanity is fracturing, has been fracturing since 2020. I think a lot of people are exposing themselves for whatever. There's a lot of people who have appeared to have their shit together, but actually in reality it's anything but. And we're going to start to see that more and more. And as much as you would like to be a conscious point of inspiration for other people, it's less about what you say, and it's less about what you do for everybody else. It's about you continuing to do what you are doing, to some extent almost oblivious to what everybody else is going through. It's not your circus, it's not your monkeys, Sagittarius. That's quite difficult, I think. It's a very difficult thing to sit on your hands and watch somebody else struggle. But people need to work this out for themselves. You know, so the sun's like, don't hide any part of yourself, but don't expect to be able to guide people through the process that you innately are, you know, a part of. They have to find their way to come to it themselves. The sun card. So the next step actually feels a little bit more observational than anything else, and perhaps somewhat in alignment with, you know, what I was talking about before, in terms of not necessarily having to move fast or pivot or any of those sorts of things as things stand at the moment. When the Page of Swords comes up, we're always expanding our awareness of something. The swords suit represent the way that we communicate, but also the way that we think. It also governs to some extent what we are able to hear in the moment. Now, the Page of Swords, is always looking to expand that out a little bit, right? To bring in more views of things. Not, I think, Sag, for your benefit this month, which is really interesting. It's about listening to what other people are going through, and certainly not volunteering this, right? But thinking about how one could unknot what you can hear happening. So I think it's one of those. Well, for example, right, the phrase "let it go." I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in my life, and people have said, "Just let it go, you'll be fine," right? And there being no conceptual framework in my head at all for what that might look like. Nothing to lean on at all. And so I dismissed it as an idle platitude, right? It's like, how the fuck? Unless you've got some sort of framework for how I let something go, don't fucking say that to me. It's overly simplistic. You can't possibly understand what I'm going through right now because you wouldn't say something so overly simplistic. Now, you know, fast forward 20 plus years, and it's something that I really wrestled with as an idea for the longest time. But then one day it just clicked. I just got it. I understood. And I understood the profundity of not just the statement, but the act of the process of it. And it is exceedingly simple. It's exactly as simple as it sounds. It's not easy, though, because so much has to be internally challenged in order to make that happen. Now, the observation aspect of this for you in terms of the next step is simply bearing witness to what you are seeing happening in the heads and the lives and the emotions and the hearts and all that sort of thing of the people around you at this time. You can't pull them out of the pit that they're in. You can't. The way that you have available to you that would help them get out of that pit is not something that they're interested in. They'll be just like, what the fuck have you given me this for? Like, right? They can't perceive of it. But in terms of understanding how big a shift we have going on, and how it makes sense that you would naturally be playing a huge part in this moving forwards, I really want you to listen to people this month. Right? You don't have to take their ideas and all that sort of thing into yourself. I mean, God's sake, don't internalize it, right? But as a process, as a practice of understanding your fellow man, so that you can best position yourself to be of value in future. It's really, really strong this month. Now, everything that's going on in Aries is feeding by trine, at least, by trine in the house of Sagittarius. So depending on how many placements you have in Sag, it's going to, how much of this Aries energy is getting infused in that. Actually, it's just mind-boggling, the whole thing. You can be a lot more, rather counterintuitively, you can be a lot more active help for people across the rest of this season if you simply allow yourself to listen. Sag. I wouldn't go overboard in offering solutions. I wouldn't go overboard in offering, some of your sage wisdom. Just listen. Just be a sounding board. And it's difficult when you know the answer. But really the period that we're in is, at best, all we can really do is very, very gently guide someone to work out the answer for themselves. The best teachers will do that for you. They won't just tell you what the answer is. They'll nudge you and they'll ask the right questions and they'll point you in the right direction of, something, a book, whatever. And then you find that information yourself, and then you begin the process of internally assimilating what that is. It sticks in a way that it doesn't when we're told a thing. You might have the answers, but there is a lot to be gained by seeing everybody else's working this month. It's going to show you where the gaps are in cognition, the gaps in understanding, the gaps in emotional regulation, the gaps in people's own mastery of self. That's going to be much more interesting to you than anything else this month. And for the rest of the time, you're just going to continue flowing on in that way that you do. Because I think we might have a big influx of people who are actually wanting to know what you know moving forwards, but they've got to make sure that they're not concrete, right? We want fertile soil, and that's down to them to do. This was very strange reading. I wasn't expecting to do anything like this, but here we are. So I'm going to leave it here, Sagittarius. We're going to dig into this a little bit more in the extended. So if you'd like to join me over there, you're very, very welcome to do so. Like I said, the links are in the description box below. If that's not for you, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And although I really fucking do appreciate you, actually, Sagittarius. Holy shit. You are the... Let's just say I see you. And it might take a while, but everybody else will see you at some point too. And I perceive what's going on underneath the surface with you quite strongly, I think. So, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.